What's up, everybody? More story time. Yeah, man, I was 17. Just found out my nephew was my brother's son, was born the day I started at American Home Interiors. I started with a guy named Dave. Imagine that. Dave and Dave. That's where everybody started calling me DJ. Apparently, there was a lot of Daves in my trade. But anyway, first job we worked on was tack and pad, old mansion in Elkton. And oh, I can't believe the shit he did. But anyway, um, like I pulled all the pad, all the carpet, everything off the truck, took the pad and tack strip up to the one side door because that one side room led into the living room where we were doing. So I was going to start there with ripping out and working my way around. Mind you, he hasn't even gotten out the truck yet. Okay, he's still on his phone and smoking a cigarette. We just got there. He talked to the homeowner, made sure it's the right place, all that stuff. And she showed us the area. Once she showed us the area, I walked out, got tools, brought everything in, ripped out everything. Everything that needed to come out came out. Put in new pad, had the carpet laid out and ready to go, and then I walked out to smoke. And he was just finishing his whatever the hell he was doing. And he's like, "You ready to go?" I said, "What are you talking about? I'm ready for you." He said, "What?" I said, "Go look." And he walked in there. He said, "Holy shit. You mean we can do another one today?" I said, "No." Joking around. And he just laughed, and the lady was like, "You guys are almost done already?" And Dave turned around and said, "Well, apparently." Yeah, we were only there for 45 minutes. Whole job was ready to go. Once seams are done, we got a few minutes to let it cool, and then I can kick it in, clean it up, vacuum it. We're done. So we had maybe another half hour, 45 minutes, and that job was done. Yeah, it was a little under 100 yards. Yep, we did the one half of the pie steps because there was two different sets, and we did the main set, and then we came back and did another set that came, I believe, off the kitchen. It might have been the dining room, but anyway, it was one of the old farm, what was considered a mansion back in the day. It's not really considered a mansion now, but I do because it's a beautiful house. But anyway, yeah, I did that. When we got back to the store, of course, I'm waiting to hear our next job or whatever else we're doing. And I'm smoking out back where the roll door is. And the main boss, Royce, which I thought I was in trouble. I don't know why I thought that, but I did. He come out there and he said, "I need to talk to you." And I said, "Oh shit, what I do now?" And he said, "Nothing. Once you're done that, come to my office." I said, "Okay." So of course, I put it out and I walked straight to his office because I wanted to know what the hell's going on. And he's got like a really like serious look on his face, like, I did something really wrong. And I'm like, "What's going on?" And he's like, "Did you lie to me?" I'm like, "What do you mean, did I lie to you?" He's like, "How much experience do you really have?" I said, "I told you, 2 years." He said, "No, no. He said, there's no way you have only 2 years. I said, well, I started doing flooring with my uncle when I was 15. I'm only 17, so that would be 2 years. He's like, well, most guys we hire that have 2 and 3 years can't do what you're doing. I said, really? I can do a lot more than this. This is nothing. He said, oh, yeah, what can you do? I said, any floor covering you give me will be done just as quickly and 100% like that. He said, really? I said, yeah. He gave me a $1.50 raise. 3 months later, I got called into his office again. He gave me another dollar raise. Then another 4 months, 4 or 5 months. So I've only been there 8 months, not even a year yet. And they normally don't give you a raise until your first year. And I got another raise, 50 cents or 75 cents. And I just kind of giggled at Royce and I'm like, why 75 cents? He said, because they won't allow me to give you any more. I started laughing. I said, why can't I be percentage? And he said, we'll talk about that later. I said, well, you realize I carry my own insurance too, right? He said, what? I said, yeah. He said, you're hourly. I said, I know. I'm not planning on staying hourly. He said, good to know. Well, it gets to around Christmas time. You know, it's not Christmas time yet, but it's cold. You know, I'm I'm there for almost 11 months, so about 3 months after that one. Um, he pulls me aside again, and he's like, "Look, Dave is telling me that we need to pay you more because it's just not fair. You're worth way more." And I said, "Okay, so what does that mean?" He said, "Well, the bosses don't want to give you more because you're a new employee and you haven't worked here a year yet." I said, "Well, what happens after a year?" He said, "Well, they're still strict on how they, give you raises and all that." I said, "Well, how how do I get, I guess, a promotion after my first year? Wouldn't that be subject to a higher pay rate?" And he said, "Yeah." He said, "After your first year, we'll put you in as, a mechanic. You'll be working with Dave, but as far as we're concerned, you both are the same level." I said, "Okay." I said, "How long's Dave been in it?" He said, "Dave's been in it for like 15, 16 years, I believe." He said he was guessing. I don't think he knew right off the top of his head, but it was around that. And um, I mean, I took care of this dude. Trust me, man. Anything that motherfucker needed, it was done. And most of the time before he even asked for it. The thing that fucked me and him up was uh, Scott Arrow, which it was two women, my sister, him dating her, and me. Uh, I don't even call that dating with Jen. I don't know what the fuck that was, but anyway, yeah, I stayed there for about 3 months after my year, and Scott Arrow was the one that took over management, and I went up to the hardware store because I wanted to talk to Mr. Hammond, and Tom Brown had taken over for Hammond's spot, and I was pissed because Tom Brown was a dick. Yeah, I had money uh, that I had them pull out of my account and put into a little savings thing at my you know at my work. It's a credit, and I used some of it to buy my parents a new stove because their stove had went up, and we sold appliances. So I bought a stove. I bought a vanity for my mom's bathroom and a vanity top and you know cabinet and trifold mirror because they were on clearance and my mom needed them, so I bought them. I was saving up to get her new carpet, and then she changed her mind and wanted laminate. So we ended up putting in laminate. But yeah, I mean, I ended up going to work with Rich Monty, which that was a mistake. That dude was fucking weird. I mean, at first he didn't seem like that bad of a guy. He just seemed, kind of weird. You know, just high strung, goofy, different. I don't know if he was doing that just to, be entertaining or what. Ended up going to his house for Thanksgiving one year, and we're all sitting in the living room. We all got our desserts and all that. His wife, Marilyn, was grabbing, I guess, silverware or whatnot and getting ready to bring that to us. And we're all sitting in the living room, and he's like right next to where the TV is, and I'm staring at the TV, and all of a sudden he just takes his pie and like shoves it like down his throat and starts attacking it like a freaking gremlin. And I looked at him like, "What the hell are you doing?" And he's like, "Well, you're just gonna sit there and freaking stare at me." I said, "Buddy, I'm staring at the freaking TV, not you." Oh, well. And he walked away. And I'm like, "What the fuck?" Even if I was staring at you, what the hell possesses you to do that? But anyway, I guess y'all had to just be there to see it. I'm pretty sure everybody else would be giving the same face, like, "What the fuck is that?" Oh yeah, this dude was fucking weird. Like the one dude that worked with him, um, they always used to have fucking wrestling matches, and Rich would talk about, because Rich was tall, but he was like skinny, and his helper was big dude, you know, and they would get into wrestling matches. And the one time, he's running his mouth about how he can do this and all that, and fucking Eric flipped him and slammed him on the ground and about messed up his hip. And I said, "You sound like a 90-year-old grandpa." Shut up. Yeah, while these two are wrestling in the living room of this house that we're installing floor at, I'm the one doing all the work. Imagine that. Well, why? Why didn't you stop with it? Because we would have been there all fucking day. That's why. Somebody's got to be productive. Oh, yeah, the same stuff happened when I worked for Pro Flooring. Yeah, they were subcontractors working for American Home Interiors before they started that business. It was Chris Smith and Mike Crawford. And they used to ride around with a truck that said 30 years combined experience. Which Chris Smith, I don't know. He was a good salesman and all that. He was a real cool dude, but as far as installing, I don't know what his problem was. He was just weird. Well, one day Dave was didn't show up, so they sent Chris out with me. And Chris is trying to get me to sit back and just watch everything he's doing. And I'm like, "Chris, you need to get out of my way, dude." He's like, "No, no, no, no." And I'm like, "You need to call the store and ask them because you're really pissing me off. Like everything I got to do, oh, don't do that. Do it like this. Oh, don't do that. Do it like this." Motherfucker, I know exactly what I'm doing. Leave me alone. He goes out to call the store, comes back in. "I have everything ready to go." And he's like, "Well, how come you weren't?" that quick when I was in here because you won't get the fuck out of my way and you won't shut up. Everything I go to do, you tell me, no, wait, no, wait, no, wait. And I have to have a 20-minute fucking lecture on what I already know how to do. Really? Yeah, really. Well, I ain't used to that. I don't give a shit what you're used to. You need to get out of my way. And that's when he goes back out and calls the store again. And Royce is like, look, leave him alone and let him do what he's doing. And finally, Chris just said, whatever, and sat in the van. I cleaned everything up, brought it out, threw it in the van. I said, we're on to the next. He said, what? You're finished? I said, if you want to go inspect it and cost us another fucking hour, you go right ahead. You're going to waste your time and mine, and we're not going to get to this other job that we have. So what does he do? He goes in and inspects the job for an hour and can't stop ranting and raving about how good it looks. And I'm like, yeah, I know. Can we get to the next one? Now, mind you, a job that should have taken maybe hour and a half, 2 hours, has now taken almost almost 4 hours. So you've taken up half my day all because you want to talk and look at shit. I mean, I understand it's our first time working on a job together. We get back to the shop and he's like, mind you, we took our van, me and Dave's van. We didn't take his truck and his trailer. We get back and he's like, all right, my trailer and my truck needs to be cleaned out and organized. I said, excuse me? He said, well, yeah, you're my helper. I said, no, 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 no. I said, I have no problem organizing your truck for you and your trailer, but you're paying me. You're not the installer I work for, and don't ever try and get free work out of me. He said, oh, okay. So I went out there, I organized that whole motherfucking thing. I mean, way, way better than he expected. And he's like, geez, I just wanted you to get the trash out. I said, you said clean and organize, and that's what I did. He's like, you're right. And I had his work, what he called a work trash can, because he did a lot of hardwood. And he kept a scrap trash can around to throw some of the scraps in. Some of them he would reuse, some of them he wouldn't. But anyway, I strapped it to the side instead of just letting it, loosely bounce around in the back of the trailer. And when he opened the door, he's like, you strapped the can to the side? I said, yeah, why not? He said, that's smart. I never even thought of that. I'm like, are you fucking with me? See, with my uncle, he was a crazy ass driver, so I would have to strap things to the side of the van wall. Because if I didn't, well, there was no sense in organizing things. By the time we got to the job, we would have tools and stuff all over the carpet that I would have to pick up and reorganize before we could even pull everything out. So I came up with a bungee cord system that anything that was normally known for flying, I made sure that bitch was strapped down. Yeah, that way I wouldn't have to worry about, organizing a van 5 and 20 times a day just because of some dumbass don't know how to remember. You're in a van, okay? You're not in a car. You're not in a pickup truck. You can't do shit like that. Taking 90-degree turns at freaking 30, 40 miles an hour with barely touching the brake to take the turn. What are you doing? What? Get out. I'm driving. Yeah, after I got my license, I was his personal driver. Yep, he sat in the passenger seat. Not all the time, but 75% of the time. Yeah, he'd drive to the warehouse in the morning. I'd get all the trucks done because there was like 4 or 5 other installers that would be there, and they used to pay me to organize their vans because after they seen how I did Uncle John's, they're like, you know what? You need to do that to mine. I said, not without paying me. They said, really? I said, yeah. You want your van to look like that and not have to worry about the mess in the morning, then $50. And he said, that sounds pretty good. So it wasn't always five vans. Sometimes it was four, sometimes it was three, sometimes it was two, not including our own. And I would have all of them cleaned, organized, and parked out front ready to load within 45 minutes. Yeah, around, I'd say around 10 minutes for each van. Now, of course, if I didn't have, four or five vans to do that morning plus my own, then I'd be done, sooner. But that was the typical. And they couldn't believe it. I've had three helpers out there straightening that van, and it took them over an hour. Well, it doesn't take me that long. I lined them all up, took all the junk out of each one of them all at once, threw it all away. And as I'm taking junk, separating trash and tools, I'm making a pile of tools. Some of it I'm putting back in places where I already know where it goes. Other stuff that, needs to be grouped together and put in different places, I just group it together and sit it next to near where it goes. That way I can continue getting all the trash and dust and all that out because you got to completely take everything out, throw all the trash away, separate all the tools, put all the tools where they need to go, and keep the floor clear so you can sweep and get all the dust and crap out of it. That way you don't have dust and crap getting in your carpet or your material and messing it up. So it was a fiasco, you know. But I was doing a job for my mom's area manager for Subway because she had a condo and a townhouse, and I had kept the carpet at my mom's house so I wouldn't, have to store it in my apartment. And I came here the one night and I cut it up and I put it in the storage room. And then the next morning I came in and I got a cup of coffee. I can't believe my mom even said this, but she's like, "Do you need? I'll be out there in a minute to help you load that van." I said, "Are you kidding me? That van's already loaded." She said, "What?" I said, "Yeah, it only took me like 5-10 minutes. It's already loaded." She's like, "How'd you do that?" I said, "I picked it up and loaded it." She's like, "That was quick." I'm like, "Yeah." Yeah, once I started doing, the side stuff here and there just so girlfriends wouldn't get mad at how much I was working. I mean, I had to. The only reason why they didn't want me working is because they were trying to cut my finances off. Well, of course, they didn't straight out say that. They did it in a different way. Messed up part was Uncle John kept warning me about it, and I'm like, look, these girls don't seem like they're gonna do that. And he's like, yep, all of them don't until they do. I just laughed. Yeah, Uncle John's telling me to leave girls alone. My aunt's telling me you need to go find you a girlfriend to go date. Huh. Let me tell all you other ones something. If you, especially today, these modern women are crazy. Oh, they were crazy back in my day too, but these ones are worse. I didn't think that was possible, but here we are. Leave them alone. Even in high school, understand, got to have a date to prom or homecoming or whatever. Other than that, Don't do that bullshit. Don't fall for that high school sweetheart dumb shit that they try to get you to fall for. Don't do it. And to the ones, oh, well, that's where I met my wife, and we've been. Let me tell you something. I don't know how you did that, and I don't trust it at all. I know there's holes in that relationship bigger than freaking what the Titanic had after it sank and cracked in half. Um, Let me tell you something. We don't know the details of that, but I can tell you this: the majority of those both have done things against each other majorly. Whether they stood or the fact that they stayed together through it is, I can't say it's amazing. I can't say it's bad. I can't say it because it all depends on the couple. Some couples that stay together should have never. Other ones that stayed together, I'm pretty sure a lot of people are glad that they did because they might be the guiding light for their relationship. Even though that sounds kind of selfish, it's not really. Without that, guide, who knows, those people's relationship might not have worked. And that's the other thing. Long relationships, man, they start out, at least most of them start out all nice and, great and whatnot. But what I've noticed is a lot of times that's love bombing. This is why before you say something to her about the feeling that has changed in the relationship, she will say it to you. And I'm talking about the ones that have the female love bombing and doing this. And you have to watch very closely because they will try to make you believe that you were the one that changed. Because they will find out who you are, they will like you, and they will slowly start to try to change you. Then they will say you changed and it was your fault, even though it was them that changed. Well, think about it. They think you're great just the way you are. Why would they change you, right? Oh, it's because a woman's never satisfied unless she's, you know, got a project, mental project. But you notice how silent they go when they're proven that everything they did was wrong. Then they get mad at the people that said that, hey, this was wrong. Prime example, the number one people I have a problem with when I install, especially when I try to tell them about care instructions, is females. A lot of times they don't even want me to tell them, what is the best method for cleaning their floors. Because 90% of them will tell me, oh, I use bleach. This is why I'm telling you that, on hard surfaces and whatnot, because they feel if they don't smell bleach, it's not clean. Right. Lysol kills 99.9% of germs. El Fabuloso kills 99.9% of germs. What does bleach kill? 99.9% of germs. So, no, you're wrong. You're hard headed. You want it because that's what in your brain tells you that it's clean, which is a made up fantasy. That just means you don't think anything's clean unless you put acid on it. Well, in care instructions, you're not supposed to use abrasive cleaners on a lot of these floors because it ruins the wear layer or the, you know, protective film that is put on them. It tells you that right in the care instructions. And a lot of people don't listen to that. They do it anyway. Just like I put in VCT for Preg down here at this little store that was real close to my mom's house, and it was just a bathroom. I did it once when I was younger, and then 10 or 11 years later, he had some floods and whatnot, and I went in there, and you could see how they had bleached that floor so heavily it had started to eat the face off the tile. And he's swearing up and down that it's a defective tile. I said, Pray, if it was a defective tile, it would not have lasted a decade. And he was like, Well, you said it would last 35 years. And I said, Yes. Here's the box that I gave you with the rest of the tile in it. Read it. Here's the glue that you use for VCT. It is a 35-year glue. But water and abrasive cleaning chemicals can diminish that. So obviously somebody was back there not wringing that mop out or soaking that floor with bleach. And the one lady come out and she said, I know for a fact bleach won't do that. I pulled it right up, put it right in her face. Abrasive cleaners, and it has in parentheses bleach. Craig was like, Yeah, you're right. I said, Yeah, I know I'm right. I'm the professional here. And he's like, Well, do you think we can do a different type of floor covering? I said, Well, yeah, we can do anything you want, but VCT holds up better and lasts longer as long as you don't destroy it. And that lady got so mad at me. She was trying everything she could to bring up information that would prove me wrong, and everything she pulled up proved her wrong. And oh my gosh, she got so mad, started calling me all kinds of names. And I looked at her and I said, You're mad at yourself, not me. And she's like, Well, if I get my way, you'll never do another job here again. Why? Because you were proven wrong? And Craig just started laughing. He said, Don't worry about her. She keeps it up, she won't be employed here any longer. And then she shut up, and I just smiled at her. That's what I mean. Females always try and start shit. They can't just be like, Oh, okay. I wasn't trying to be a dick to her. I was just, Yo, you don't know what you're talking about. Right. I'm being stern, assertive, and showing that I have expertise. You do not. I'm not lying to you. And I proved it. And then she just couldn't handle the reality of her lie. Yeah, she did it because what I said. Women believe that that smell means that it is clean. Okay, it's not laundry. And if that's the case, how come you don't put bleach in your dishes? Which, never mind, because there are some crazy bitches that do that too. There's ones that believe if you put a cup in there, it makes it all the difference. And a sink full of water, you're gonna put a cup of bleach. Wow. Well, sanitizers is a little bit different, and even that I don't trust. Well, just like my buddy Woody Harrison said, we all spend all this money on abrasive, strong cleaners because we're told that that is what is clean when a mild soap will do. You realize water is very, very corrosive if you let it run for a long enough time. Takes a while, but yeah, it can clean and corrode things too, as in, taking stuff off. Not corrode as in, bad. Never mind. That's why stones get polished smooth and you end up with sand and things like that. And everybody, oh, you heat it up and you can make glass. Yeah, it's just rock particles, dude. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's a lot more than just rock particles, but 80% of it is rock particles. Or majority of it. It might be a little bit lower than 80. I've never actually done the science on one area, but one area might have more settlement from different something other than rock than what another place does, depending on what got pushed up there. But anyway, yeah, when I first started with my Uncle John, at first I sucked. I wasn't, I mean, I was really good at the mechanic stuff and all that, but getting used to all the lifting and all that is what killed me. But I didn't stop. I kept going. Didn't give a shit how heavy it was or how hard it was to get in the house, man. I took me a breather and went right back to it. I don't even want to do none of that stuff anymore because it all helps big business and all that. And I'm just tired of being a slave for big business and running on this hamster wheel that does nothing but supply elite pedos and pedos that are bankers with the ability to do what they're doing. But yeah, most of uh, the stuff I got into for work was because a lot of people would say that, I was really strong and all that as a kid, but I was just small. And they were worried that I wouldn't be able to do this or that. And I'm like, watch this. They changed their tune real quick. I was on the farm with Ralph. I was shit. I was 10 years old when we took down that silo. And he had all the sledgehammers lined up, and it was, one of the concrete tiled type silos with the metal tops. And he was telling everybody else to grab a hammer. And of course, I hop up and grab one. He's like, whoa, not you. I said, what do you mean, not me? He's like, you don't have enough ass to do anything anyway. And I don't think you're fast enough to move if that thing falls. I grabbed that sledgehammer, walked over there, and just started taking out tile. He's like, you don't listen, do you? I said, you're not going to tell me what I can do. I'll show you what I can do. Just like when after that, I showed him I knew exactly what I was doing. I'll be fine. And we took that freaking thing down. It was awesome. I wanted another one, but it was the only one that we were, taking down. And he started laughing. He's like, I'll call my buddies up and see if they got a couple you can take down. But he was talking to one of the older farm hands and said, the pickup truck filled with hay over there in the field needs to be taken down to where, the horses and cattle are. And I ran over there, hopped in it, and started it up. And he come yelling at me. He's like, you don't know how to drive? I said, this is one of the perks of working on a farm. And I took off. Took the truck down there, spun it around, parked it where it needed to be. Seen them working on a fence, nailing nails in. And I walked up there, grabbed a hammer, started, you know, setting nails and putting up fence rails. And he's like, you want me to teach you a technique? And I'm like, sure. He said, all right. He said, get that nail set, and I'm going to show you how to drive it with one hit. I said, there ain't no way. By the time I got done saying no way, He done drove that freaking nail straight in with one hit. I was shocked because it always took me at least three or four. Always. And I'm like, how the heck did you do that? And he's like, you got to boss the nail. It's got to know who's boss. If you want to drive it with one, you make sure you mentally in your hand and your brain and your body say that you're going in one shot. And I said, really, that works? He said, yeah, try it. It did not work. I smashed my finger, even though I wasn't even holding the nail. I missed the nail completely. Boy, did I have some duct tape on that thing for a while. And I looked at him like, you motherfucker. And he started laughing. He's like, well, you got to hit the nail. And that was the wrong one. And I looked down and my fingernails all purple and blue and my fingers all swollen. I said, yeah, I would say it is the wrong one. So I switched the hammer to the other hand and got pissed off at that nail and fucking drove it. First shot. And I could not believe I did it. I was not expecting to. I was just mad. And he looked at me and said, see? I said, how the hell did I do that? He said, I don't know, but you better figure it out. So I spent the rest of the day driving nails with one shot. I was a little over 10 years old. And I worked on that farm for, a long time. They had a pot-bellied pig named Willie. Always used to try and steal our sandwiches that his wife would make us, turkey and cheese or ham and cheese or, you know, whatever. But she would make it for all the people working on the farm every day. She loved it. Now it was the first time I didn't want to be rude because she worked hard to feed all those people. Trust me, it was a lot. I did not have the heart to tell her that I didn't like mayonnaise, and she put mayonnaise and mustard on my sandwich, so I ate it. I about died. I could not stand the taste of that, but I ate it. And she came over. I was sitting on the porch at the end of the day, and she came over and she said, "You didn't like that mayonnaise, did you?" I said, "No." She said, "You could have told me." I said, "No, ma'am. I am not telling you that." And she said, "Why?" I said, "Because I was raised by women and I know how hard y'all work to cook food for us. I'm, nope. Mm-mm." Now, with my mom, I could be a little picky, but not much. At times, she was fine with it. At other times, she was, I don't give a damn. You're eating what I make, and if you don't like it, go to bed. Or, go hungry. Sometimes I'd just roll my eyes and, make me a egg sandwich with cheese. Yeah, I'd take an egg, I'd whip it up, put it in a bowl with a little bit of butter, and stick it in the microwave, and let it go into it. Made almost like a fried egg with hard yolk. And put it on toast with a little bit of bacon and cheese. Yes, I knew how to use the stove. Shoot, I was washing dishes on a chair when I was 5. Well, I was young, and I would see my brother and sister doing it, and they would always throw a fit about it. So sometimes I would just grab the chair, hop up there, and start doing it. And mom would always tell me, "Oh, you're the youngest. You don't have to do that. You're not old enough yet." And I said, "Well, I can do it." So, well, what do you mean? And she was afraid of, me cutting myself with a knife or, something like that. Which I did do that a couple times. Not bad, but all I did was look at it and say, "Ow," and then I'd wrap it up. Or sometimes I'd giggle and be like, "Hey, mom, look, you're right." She didn't like that. She didn't like seeing blood. Yeah, I remember one time. I was walking back from the cliffs through the field, and you had to come through people's yards. You know, it's a trailer park. So after you get up the hill, you got to walk through people's yards. You know, to get to my place. And two of my friends, uh, Krista and I forget her brother's name. I think it was Ross or Roy. I forget. But anyway, I can remember his face and exactly what he looks like. I just can't remember his name for some reason. But anyway, they were on, you know, the old metal swings. Yeah, the ones that used to lift up and slam down if your parents didn't concrete them into the ground, which none of our parents did. I don't think any of the swing sets I ever got on were. We would actually play with it. But anyway, they used to have this little basket thing. It's kind of like a little two-seater. You know, sometimes you could fit four kids on it, but it wasn't the seesaw. It was the little basket swinging thing. You know, kind of like a swinging seat, but with for two people. And like I said, if the kids were small enough, you could fit four. But anyway, they were swinging on that, and they asked me to push them, and I was pushing them, and they, you know how we are, higher, higher. So I grabbed the bottom of it, and it's got four legs that kind of stick down past the bottom. So I grabbed the two legs that were the furthest from me, so I could get the most swing that I could. And when I lifted it above my head and went to push it, one of the legs stuck me in the top of the head and pulled my face and everything right through the dirt. I just, my dumbass wasn't expecting that. I get up, you know, I feel something warm trickling down the back of my neck, but I didn't think anything of it. I walk home. I get in the house, and my mom's face, white as a sheet, eyes as big as anything, and she just starts screaming, "What happened?" I said, "What are you talking about?" She said, "You have blood on the back of your neck." And I took my hand, you know, rubbed the back of my neck and pulled it out. Pulled my hand out to look at it, and it was covered. I mean, the whole fucking hand was covered. I said, "Oh, wow." Yeah, man. She smacked the shit out of me for that. I scared the shit out of her. Mind you, I'm the one hurt. And yeah, I don't know. That was just her reaction. And I remember one time, I forget what it was over, but I know after she smacked me in the face, she felt bad because I didn't do anything wrong. But for some reason, she just didn't like what I said. And I was like, "Mom, it was the truth. Wasn't saying it to be disrespectful. That's what happened." But my nose bled, and she got so mad at that. She's like, "You get in all these fights with these people and get punched in the face, and you never come home with a bloody nose, and I smack you in your cheek, and all of a sudden your nose starts bleeding." I said, "Yeah." Tell you one thing though, that was the one and only time she ever smacked me in my face. Other than that, I just got stuff thrown at me. I don't know. That's just how she did it. Yeah, it wasn't too easy to have ADHD around my mom, even though she was hyper. Well, that day, uh, when I got in trouble for disturbing her while she was on a phone call, I didn't know she was on a phone call, and that was my fault. I didn't look up, you know, while I was talking to her. I was walking with my head down, you know, paying attention to what's in my hand and talking, not looking. And when I looked up, she was on the phone and she was mad. And I mean mad. And she's, you know, mouthing words to me. Kids from my era know exactly what I'm talking about. No sounds coming out, but you know damn well what she means. And I was just like, oh shit. So I went back in my room. Yeah, I got in big trouble for that. Mm. I think uh, the most painful thing I ever went through as a kid was appendicitis when my appendix ruptured. Now that was the most pain I've ever been through, and I walked right through that. Well, some of it I crawled, but that was because uh, my mom knew that a stomach bug was going around, and she thought that's what I had. So I pretty much laid in. Well, I don't mean laid like laid around, but I did lay around a good bit. Uh, I just had that pain for like 4 days, and the fourth day, I had no body function. I could talk to you, I just couldn't move, which was a sign, of the poison from the appendix shutting my body down. Not to mention internal bleeding, by the way. Um, but yeah, man, I only spent a week in the hospital and I was out. Most people spend at least a month, sometimes a little longer in there, but I was only in there for a week. Yeah, they told me I had to do certain things, and they told me right after surgery they were trying to get me up and walking. They're like, "Well, the quicker we can get you up and moving, the quicker you can get out of here." So I got up and moving, but then they were like, "Well, we need you to do a couple more things before we let you leave," and one of them was go number two, and there's a couple other things they wanted to make sure everything was okay, for the most part. So I did all that, and by like day 5 or 6, I believe they let me out. Old Union. Yeah, back then we had Hartford Memorial or Union Hospital, and Union Hospital was terrible. But anyway, yeah, my mom felt so bad, but it wasn't her fault. She didn't know. I do remember one time me faking sick so I didn't have to go to school. And while she had her back turned, I took the thermometer and tried to stick it on a light bulb. That was not a good idea. Nope, the mercury in it went so high it popped it. Yep. My dumb ass sticks the thermometer back in my mouth, and she's like, "What are you doing?" There ain't no way you got a fever that high. And I just smiled. And she's like, you just don't want to go to school. She let me stay home that day. I had a lot of work to do, but at least I got to stay home. I hated school. I didn't like new people and dealing with all the freaking crazy ass kids. I didn't like it. I tried to make the best of it, but I just didn't like it. I have one friend, Sean Bruce. I'll never forget him. He's that goofy fucker. I swear. I don't know. Second grade, man. I don't know what was up with him, but I still remember it like it was yesterday. We were out on the playground, and he had come to school. I think it was show and tell or something, and he had wore his karate gi. What he didn't know is that from 6 and 7 years old, I was in Shanks Karate, which is Taekwondo, original karate, and other things that they taught, but it was mainly Taekwondo and karate. And one of the senseis was friends with my mom when they went to school. So we put in for a free thing and we ended up, of course, getting it because you always do. And we ended up in karate and taekwondo. Anyway, Sean didn't know that, but he also didn't know my background up until second grade. And most people think it's unreal. Trust me, so do I. But hey, it's what I had to do. But anyway, we're on the playground, and he's doing all his form and all this. And I'm like, yeah, that's cool, man. I was like, have you gotten to sparring and all that yet? And he's like, no, you know. Now, of course, he's messing with me, you know, while I'm talking to Danielle. And he keeps, like, doing the karate stuff, hiya, hiya, and kicking at me and punching at me and, like, tapping the back of my leg or, you know. And I looked over at him, like, side eye. I'm like, oh, yeah. And he keeps doing it. So when he went to kick my leg, I grabbed his leg and sweep his other one, like really smooth and with a spin, and stood up, and I said, sweep the leg. And he started laughing. He's like, all right, karate kid. And he hops up and he moves to where he's like right at the, like, where the wood lining is. And when he does that, I spun around and hit him with a spinning back kick right in the chest. Like in the, well, it wasn't the chest, it was like the abdominal, your diaphragm. And I dug my heel in, basically heel kick. But it was a spinning back heel kick, one of my favorites. And he went flying into the woods, dude. And I didn't know that I had done it like that. I was trying to play like he was, but apparently I did not pay attention to the force I was using. I felt so bad, man. And I guess he took that some type of way, because I mean, he didn't like say he did, but you could just tell. You know, I hurt something in his feelings. I didn't know what it was, but I think I embarrassed him in front of everybody. I did not mean to do that. I just wasn't thinking. I was just goofing off and did it. And one of the older students from the karate was there too, and they were out at recess with us, but they were in a higher grade. And he seen what I did, and he was like, David. I said, I know. I didn't mean to, you know. He's like, I know, but this is why you gotta be very careful. And I said, I know. And when we went, you know, back to class, not at school, but karate class, he was teaching me things to, control and all that on power and technique. And I thank him for that because I've used a lot of that technique and stuff throughout my days. I didn't think I was going to, but I did. Just like breaking boards, there's a technique. It's not all about power, there's a technique. And yeah, that technique right there, something very good to learn. It was something very bad to teach me because, well, not very bad, but it made me rowdy after I learned it because I was going around breaking tree limbs, two by fours, anything I could get a hold of to break. I was breaking. And some things I tried I could not break, but my brain said, try it. I shouldn't have tried it. But yeah, a lot of people, when I hear their stories and I start telling them mine, they would tell me, well, that's hard to believe. Well, sorry about your luck. I wish you were there. Just go ahead and take my word for it. A couple of them, man, I would be like, don't you think if I was coming up with a made up story that I would make it way better than that? I mean, come on now. Yeah, when I was a kid and stuff, I used to come up with stories and elaborate on stuff. Of course, I was a kid. But as I got older, I learned that was just stupid. Made no sense. The truth is way better than any fiction you could ever tell. So I just started telling the flat out truth. I should have never done that because that makes people mad. A lot of people like living in their own fantasy versus reality bubble. And yes, I understand there's fine lines. Sometimes you need to pop that bubble. Sometimes it's fine. Just let them stay in it because it's their comfort or whatever. Or at least at that time, that's what I thought. But that's where I started learning that everything has fine lines to it. And individuals have different fine lines. Went to work real hard, ended up in relationships, and lost all my friends. Yep. Well, a lot of them got mad at me because, well, I never heard from you. That works both ways, bro. And I hate to blame it on ADHD, but that's basically what it was. I got in a routine, you know. I never heard anything to bring my attention. Oh shit, yeah, we haven't hung out in a while. Let's go do that. That type thing. Yes, 15, 14. I was working, roofing, framing. I was working with a remodel guy, so but he always put me on the roofs, the framing, piping, electric, things like that. The one thing for some reason, he would always subcontract out was flooring. He'd always give that to somebody else. So me and him never really did that. Every once in a while, we'd lay a piece of sheet vinyl out, but you know, I found out when I worked with my uncle that that dude was doing it a crazy way, one that probably would have made my uncle lose his mind. But and sometimes people do that. They install weird ways, but as long as it's to install specifications, mill specifications for installation, then you're fine. Doesn't really matter how you do it, just as long as those things are met, you're good. And I think that's where a lot of installers give each other shit at, because we like our ways and we see somebody else that does something. We might, sometimes we like it. Sometimes we're looking at them like, what in the hell are you doing that for? And some people, if you shut up and watch, you'll see why. Other ones, if you shut up and watch, you will have a big mess to fix. So careful on that one.